Here we are. Shea, Stewie, the boys. All right. New format. I will be hosting the recruiting hour. Power Hour with Shea Dixon, brought to you by Lance Beal. And so we're going to be very chat intensive. Rely on you guys to get us some recruiting questions. We'll bounce around what LSU did on Sunday. Shea was at the game. Shea was at the press conference yesterday, I believe. I'm sure that went well.
Oh, boy.
Oh, were you on time?
I was like 20 minutes early.
I heard that you were right in the vicinity, like in the firing squad.
Right there.
Neck
front row.
Oh. What?
You know that went viral.
That's what I was about to say, is how did that catch? It caught on so quickly to where it was all I saw on my phone. And I of course I knew about it. Like we saw it and it was like, oh no, now it's on Pardon My Take. Now it's on Barstool Sports. I was like, oh no, this is massive.
This is ESPN, CBS Sports.
People hate Brian Kelly. The national people, they're just like, look at this guy, such a dick.
Yeah,
I was like, whoa. Railed on him.
Kick him while he's down.
Doesn't help that he lost. But anyway, how was your day? How was your weekend?
It was better than that.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah.
You were he was out.
He was on a hiatus.
Oh yeah, that was
second
right.
presser
I forgot
back.
about that.
And you're like, oh god, we're back in the saddle, dude.
I was early though.
Ooh, of course. You're not trying to get in the firing
Very
squad.
punctual.
I think she was early. Like 11:57.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're not early, you're late. If you're late, you're on time. In my world. All right. Anyway, so I want to get some of your thoughts. Recruiting, obviously. News over the weekend. LSU, I believe, popped a commitment on Sunday, huh?
They did for next year. Zion Ferguson, though, out of Grayson High, a cornerback, committed to the Tigers. That was one they had kind of felt good about for a little bit and just kept working it, and finally he went ahead and shut things down. And he's the number on the On3 consensus, the number 18 cornerback in the country for next year, which makes him right around number 155. So kind of a top 150 prospect nationally, and number 26 player in Georgia, which Georgia, Texas, Florida, California, Louisiana, those are the big states. So being ranked in the top 25 range in Georgia is a big deal. You're a pretty good player. And the third guy out of Grayson High,
about to ask.
Michael Doherty for this year. And then you've got obviously Zion Ferguson, JoJo Stone. So the the staff is making some good inroads in Georgia. Coach O and his staff did a good job in Georgia as well. There were guys always kind of coming through from Georgia to LSU. It's a great state to recruit in, and now we've seen LSU get back there. Deron Reed's another guy in Georgia that's committed. Whit Weeks, West Weeks' little brother, who's a big-time player. I think that it's been a nice run for them. Who picked up the torch from the Coach O? Who's now carrying the mantle in Georgia? Is it Cortez Hankton? Well, that's obviously he's coming from Georgia's staff, but they've got a number of people both on field, the staff, obviously, on-field staff plays a big role, but they've got guys. One guy that these kids at Grayson mentioned, Bobby Barham, had been on staff at Georgia. Now he's on LSU staff in the personnel department. So you've kind of got guys behind the scenes, that have worked at other schools. I mentioned Bobby. He was at
Shadow
UGA.
Staff.
So guys like that can kind of quickly get you inroads and pick up with kids that they had been talking with or recruiting before, whatever it might have been.
Okay, before we get deeper into recruiting, any thoughts on the weekend? LSU, Florida State?
I picked them to be a 7-8 win team, and 8 being the ceiling, I thought. And 8 would seem like, a lot right now. It'd be a high ceiling to still hit, but I think 7's obviously possible. 8's possible. I think one thing you got to remember, I didn't think they were going to look all that great, and not because of any indictment on talent or a specific position or the coaching staff. It was just when you're blending all those things together, more change than any college football team out there this offseason. You're not going to come out and just be efficient and smooth and no rust or whatever. And they still only lost by 1. It wasn't like UCLA where they got run off the field, or Mississippi State 2 years ago in the opener where they got run off the field in Mike Leach's debut. They really just kept battling and stuck around and finally started clicking. And I see a lot that a staff can build on. And there is nothing in Brian Kelly's kind of win-loss track record that would have you believe that he can't, find those things to improve on, coach them through the season. And we heard him say it in fall camp a lot. the team you see play Florida State will not be the team that, goes on the road to Auburn to start October, goes host Bama to start November. Like, you're going to keep getting better. You're going to develop during the season. You're going to become more of a team. Like, this probably isn't much of a team right now. Because
no, there's too many moving pieces.
It's
that
just
all had
a
to
lot
come
of guys
in, and
that
you only have so much time for them to get some continuity together. That I'll understand, and that I understood why some of those things happened. My, I guess, bigger takeaway before, like I said, we're going to do recruiting, but is all of the things that you thought that you were getting with the Brian Kelly-led staff and Brian Kelly-led team were not, where it's not the case. Like all of the controllables, things that you can kind of fix, that you want to like kind of look good in and out of the huddle. Obviously, you don't want special teams gaffes like that. Like, I thought that LSU would play a little bit cleaner. And so that was kind of my bigger takeaway, is that they didn't look. I mean, you brought in Brian Kelly to kind of flip the script from what O had done with his staff, where it looked, there was no balance. There was no, continuity. You thought you were going to get a much cleaner game in my mind. So that's why I thought there's more cause for concern than anything.
Yeah,
Not so much on the players' end, but on, the organizational end.
Right, and that could go along with rust or whatever it might be, or just kind of, again, a whole new staff, 9 of 10 coaches and 3 new coordinators and a new head coach, like everyone getting on the same page and how the game flows. I'm far from pressing the panic button on a 1-point loss in the opener when it was the first game they played. And a lot of people are pointing out something that I talked about all fall. Playing a week 0 game helps, because even if it's Duquesne or whomever it might be, you get to work through a lot of these things that we saw them working through on Sunday night. So I wouldn't
see what your extra point.
I'm not pressing I'm not pressing any panic buttons. And look, we'll talk about this in a minute. We can bump this we had a little rundown. We can bump this to the top as we talk about the game. And now let's shift to recruiting. We caught up with a lot of guys. Billy and Body, if you don't follow us on the Bengal Tiger On3 network, that's where we're at now. It's $1 for a year. Sign up. Head to the page.
That's tough.
It's giving it away for free.
Essentially.
That's stealing.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to promo all this
Absolutely.
here, guys?
Keep going. No, I thought it was going to be more than $1.
Yeah. I want to see people in the YouTube signing up right now.
Yeah, super chat us, and we'll get you on their own On3. Just send us that super chat.
Billy caught up with a lot of guys, and there's an article up. If LSU commits, recruits, react to first game of Brian Kelly era. I'll retweet it again today if anybody didn't catch it yesterday. And people are going to get tired of me saying this, but I've said it every year for 15 years that I've been on radio and covering recruiting. High school kids don't live through the football team like fans do, or like radio hosts do, or whatever. These kids, barring a handful that might play for the the IMGs of the world,
and they even lost last week.
Zachary High, or whomever it might be. These guys lose on Friday nights. They get it, and half the time when you lose and you lose by a point, you're like, we won. We played better. Had we played like that for all 4 quarters, we would have beat them. It's not. They're not down on themselves.
The sky
they're
doesn't
not
fall.
down
They don't
on
want
their
to fight.
program.
I mean, you saw the a lot of the interaction on Twitter, after the game on Monday, where it was a lot of players, or a lot of recruits, I should say, that were retweeting "This is our football coach. This is our football coach." They've lived a lot on Twitter in the recruiting world. So they did. They had, what are the hashtags that they've had for certain recruits? They kind of did the same thing for Brian Kelly. So they don't look at it like LSU fans do, where it's one game, opener, season's over. They look more, I would imagine, into the future, right? They see
100%. And kids think too, hey, look, that if you're struggling at this position and that's my position, maybe I'm playing a little bit earlier.
Doors wide open.
I'll give you some quotes here. Paul Mabenga, one of the offensive linemen they have committed, he's out of Georgia, so not an in-state kid, a kid who's kind of viewing it from a different perspective, chose to go to LSU, an out-of-state school, said they played a great game on Sunday. They fought till the end. Things like that are a part of the growth process for a team as young as them. Definitely still have to improve on certain things like special teams, but it's heading the right way. Let's go with Zion Ferguson, who went to the game, who just committed on Sunday. It was definitely a really fun experience for me. The game was super intense, and the fans were unmatched. Keelan Moses, who's Dylan Moses' little brother at U High. This is a 2025 kid, so this is a sophomore with this sort of perspective right here. I thought it was a really crazy game. I thought the Tigers are still kind of in their planning out stage, trying to find the leaders of the team, and honestly, who to give the ball to in tough times. I think they'll be better in the middle of the season, but now with a new coach, new quarterbacks, and basically a whole new staff, I think they just need to mold it all together and play more as a whole, and they'll be fine. And even though it was a tough loss, I really love the way they fought back and almost got the victory. You've got a sophomore at U High who's got a better perspective on this than a lot of LSU fans, and I'm being dead serious. You know, like, he very much spelled out like the expectations for me aren't way up here. Like, you're a new staff, you're a new program, you know, everything about it's new. I expected you to have some things to iron out and get to the middle of the season, and then you'll start to look better. So as you see, I just read you off a couple of guys, like Tyree Adams. I actually liked his a lot. They're a big offensive lineman out of St. Aug, so he's very familiar with what LSU's got to offer. He said they didn't play to the SEC and LSU standards, and I expect more from them. But we know what? They battled back into the game, and that's a good perspective because these coaches want these players to be held to the standard of playing to LSU. We heard the players say that after the game. We didn't play up to the standards. So I think everyone's sort of on the same page here, from recruiting to the team to the staff, of we're building this in the direction we want to go, but we're not there yet.
If things don't get turned around, or if they don't start to look better, do you expect anything from in way of decommits if you start seeing other schools? Like, obviously it feels like what you saw from Georgia is not going to – they're not going away. Yeah, they got better.
Yeah.
And then you see Alabama, but if LSU isn't able to consistently maybe make strides and start to see some continuity and get better, will that affect the class going into 2024, 2023?
You know, I think it's – and I said this on my podcast on the Bengal Tiger this
Plug it
week.
again.
Yeah, I will.
Keep plugging
it's kind of a fruitless conversation in the sense of it's hypotheticals, and we can discuss those, but like – what does bad mean? Or like 7 wins, 6 wins? Are you asking me if they win 3 games, does everyone decommit? Like, I don't know. That's such foreign territory that we've never been there and never seen it. And we're in an era now with NIL. Like, what does that come into play more than a win and loss might come into play? Like, there's things that we don't know yet about the process of recruiting that we're learning on the fly here with a team that's having to rebuild, with NIL being a factor. And look, over the past 2 seasons, they were a 500 football team, and still we're recruiting top, 5, 10 classes. And that's where they are right now. So that's sort of the standard to be at. And you don't want to see them slip outside of that. And you want to lock up guys in Louisiana no matter what. And they've done a good job of kind of picking up a lot of guys after an initial wave of guys who left, picked to leave the state. But I'll say this too, because we're discussing if they're going to be bad. Remember when they were 15-0 in the middle of a national championship season, and Raheem Jarrett and Jermaine Burton flipped on them on signing day.
Jarrett did it during the Under Armour All-American
and
game?
there was no
For Maryland.
100%. He's still at Maryland,
Yeah.
And obviously Jermaine Burton's at Bama now. But like even when you're at your best, guys can end up going elsewhere. So that's just how recruiting is. I think it'll be something to monitor. But I think the good news is you entered the season with 20-something commitments, and we'll talk about the balance a little bit here in a bit, but that's good because sometimes it's a lot easier to hold on to guys than convince guys to commit. So the base and foundation and more of this class is already there. And if you've convinced them and sold them on this being a rebuilding year, then they know what they're in for. And again, LSU's coming off, it wasn't like LSU's been 15-0 for 3 seasons in a row, and now it's like, oh man, y'all might not be good this year. These guys are committing to a program that has not been at the standard the past 2 seasons. So I think they all see themselves as part of the reset.
And that's when we get into, I guess I'm going to go straight from the chat here. Hunter Hall, 22 kids committed for LSU. What positions do you see LSU going for, looking for, to use this last couple of spots on?
Well, they've already got a quarterback. They've already got a couple running backs. They've already got 4 receivers. I think we'll continue to see O-line. They've got Zaylon's Hurd, and they've got Tyree Adams and Paul Mabenga, who I talked about out of Georgia. They'll add another guy or 2 there. You always do. They have 4 D linemen already. They may add another guy there who came in out of South Carolina. We'll see Harold Perkins probably get in the mix this year. We'll see if Baskerville gets in the mix. But beyond Greg Jones and Greg Penn and Mike Jones, that's the combo of them. Greg Jones is just what I'll call them.
Yeah, put them together.
The 2 starters. There's not a ton of depth. So linebackers, one I'm watching. They took a bunch of DBs, but they're still after some DBs. I'd say kind of tight end and linebacker are 2 positions I think they really need on the team that they'll probably still try to add in this class. And if it's not a high school guy, and then after the season, it's somebody in the transfer portal.
That's what I was about to ask. How many spots do you think they save for the portal, considering it's still, I would say still relatively new, but Brian Kelly wants to bring in his own people. He hit the transfer portal extremely hard last year. Do you see them saving? You always save at least what? What's been like the in vogue to save how many spots?
Well, I think we're kind of learning that, right? So last year they had 15 high school signees, and I think by the end of it, like they hit signing day with like 15 transfers or in that range, and they added guys after that, Seven Banks, Colby Richardson out of McNeese. So they ended up with more transfers than they did with high school kids, which is like unheard of, obviously. And when we haven't been in the transfer portal era very long here. But that won't be the case moving forward. And Kelly has said that. Brian Polian, the recruiting coordinator, said that. Position coaches have talked about it. Everybody knows that, hey, we went transfer heavy right out of the gates because we took over a team that had 39 scholarship players in a bowl game. And they're still not to 85 scholarship players. They're in the 70s or whatever. So it won't be that like 50-50 split. That's not a way to build a program out. That's sort of continuing to patchwork things.
It's Scotch tape on it.
Being over 21, 22 commits right now, whatever it is, I think they'll get to 26, 27 high school guys, take 5 or 6 transfers, maybe a couple more, but you figure that transfer stuff out and you figure out ultimately how many high school guys you want to finish with after the season, because that's when you find out how many guys maybe transfer, how many guys are going pro, how many scholarships you have left, because the new rule is sign as many as you want, just stay under the 85. So
who would you say they would have a chance to flip in, like Louisiana-wise or nationally?
You know, it'll be interesting to watch. I don't know if I have many people on immediate flip watch. There's guys still out there that, like the Nicholas Harbors of the world, like aren't committed to anybody yet. Like Toviano is a DB out of Texas, is not committed to anyone yet. Braveon Rogers was committed to A&M, and LSU played a role in helping get him to open things back up, and he was going to look at, and still is, I guess, was planning to look at LSU and Bama and USC, and then this past weekend he goes over to A&M and commits again. So, you know, things can kind of happen.
A lot of people up there paying you a lot of money to watch you play.
Well, look, A&M's class is not even top 25. So they were coming off that huge class a year ago that Nick Saban called out as, you know, they paid for the whole class. Well, now they're not even top 25. So I'm interested to see if they start kind of surging here and kind of playing, not desperate, but realizing, look, we're up against it, and we got to get a kid like Braveon Rogers in. He's a Texas kid. He was committed to us. Like guys like that, we can't let leave. It's the same mentality you have in Louisiana. Like eventually you just say, like Shelton Sampson, we've got to buckle down. Like Zalon's Hurd, whomever it might be, like we cannot let them leave the state. They buckle down and get them. So I don't know if I've got anyone on flip watch just yet, but we'll see kind of how things play out. Look, one guy, maybe a flip watch thing to watch will be kids who don't have offers yet but are committed to other schools. I'll give you an example. Jonathan Bax at Edna Carr is a linebacker in New Orleans. He had a huge game. I think he had 6 sacks and a pick in the first half this past week.
That'll put you on somebody's
They blew
radar.
out someone like 42-0. But anyways, I know that LSU, and every staff, but LSU is who we're talking about, will get about a month into the high school season. 3 games, 4 games. Like this past weekend was everybody's first real game. And they'll go over the film, and if they feel like, look, we need to make a move, they offer you. Bax is committed to TCU right now. Like if he gets an offer from LSU, does that shake things up? I think that's kind of one storyline that we'll be watching moving into the fall.
Where do you see LSU going with, I guess, Brian Kelly's made a lot of trying to sell Tiger Stadium as one of his bigger recruiting pitches. He kind of almost mentions it every time he talks about recruiting, or how much he thinks the Tiger Stadium can influence getting commits into LSU. Do you have the list for this weekend versus Southern?
Yeah, I think it'll be a big unofficial. They don't have any official visitors this weekend.
You save those for big,
big games or
conference games
closer to signing day. You know, and the marquee games this year are Tennessee is a big weekend. Bama's obviously here, but it's also interesting. Brian Kelly was asked this week about this. We'll hit a point here soon where colleges go out on the road on like Friday nights and they watch games and they evaluate. And then, Saturday, they come back late Friday night or whatever, Saturday morning, and then they're back with the team. And Brian Kelly said, look, in year one for us, it might be a better idea for us to just kind of ease back on that and stay here and be with the team. And once you set the foundation for the team, then you feel a little bit better about saying, hey, look, we're ducking out on Friday early. All of us are going all over the country. Let's rendezvous back here for Saturday morning and be with the team. I don't think he feels like the program isn't on that level footing yet where you need to be gone for a day.
We're more concerned about the present than the future at the
100%.
moment.
And you can still get recruiting done without everybody being out on the road every week. But in terms of then getting kids in on Saturdays, I'll be interested to see. I bet that a lot of the official visitors are saved for after the season. Obviously, if you've got big names that, if Nicholas Harper wants to, he was looking at rescheduling. He was going to come to Tennessee weekend, but I think he's got a game that's like later that day now or whatever it is. But if he wants to come in the season, you let him. He's a 5-star from out of state, up on the East Coast. And if that's the best chance for him to get down here and see a game, and maybe the only chance for him to see a game, you bring him in and do it. The issue people have or coaches have with bringing kids in for official visits during a game weekend is they arrive on Friday and leave on Sunday. If you're not playing a game, like if it's the bye week or if it's after the season, you're with them as a staff from the second they get in on Friday till they leave on Sunday. And you've got a good 72 hours to really work the family, the kid, whomever, the coaches, whomever's involved in his process. If it's on a game day weekend, they spend so much more time with the off-the-field staff, the personnel folks, because the coaches are all in position meetings, and then they're with the team, and then on Saturday they're getting ready for the game, and then they're playing the game, and then Sunday they're in film study, and any kind of recruiting stuff you have to do is being taken away from being with the team, which is what Kelly was saying is kind of the priority in year one. So I think whatever we see, how they handle official visits or being on the road in the fall to evaluate kids and recruit, I think it'll be different this year than it'll be in the future, just because Kelly's trying to put a premium on, I need to focus on the current team.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
You mentioned Nicholas Harper. Was he was it him? This is the freak show, 6'5", 250 pounds that runs track. And now he said he wants to play offense, and LSU obviously is in the market for a tight end, which I think is where he kind of projects. Did that help, or did that help LSU kind of stay in this game? Because he's obviously getting recruited at a national level. Michigan's on the list, LSU's on the list. But I think the last time you came in, you said he wanted to play offense, and LSU was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're in the market for a tight end.
Yeah, he's talked about playing tight end now a good bit, but then he said, look, I can also keep it open to playing D-line. He loves Jamar Cain, who's the D-line coach. That's I think he's even said that was one of his favorite coaches out there. So we're talking about a number one overall athlete in the country. So regardless of he's 6'5", 230. We've talked about his track times, all that. So whether it's tight end or D-line, he's considered the best athlete out there in the rankings. Now, we've seen a lot of him on defense. We're going to get to see him for the first time on offense this year, and it'll be something kind of everyone's kind of curious to see how he looks. The On3 comp for him is Darren Waller. So it's that kind of freaky athletic tight end who could probably play anywhere on the field. Let's see. He did an interview last week with On3. I'm scrolling through it right now. Looking to verbally commit in December or January, and he won't sign until February. So that gives everybody some extra time. Track is obviously a big deal for him as well. And when you look at LSU compared to pretty much any school out there, LSU is a top 5 men's and women's track and field program every year.
Right.
So they're going to have an edge there, and LSU will be involved with recruiting him in track. But I would say that the teams everybody is kind of looking at would be, and he said, look, I think Michigan, I don't know if Michigan was last week or what, or this week, but he's got Michigan. He's going to be up at South Carolina next week for the Georgia game. That's an early SEC East game for them. And then he said Maryland, LSU, Miami. So we're talking about a kid from
Washington,
the D.C. area, playing at Archbishop Carroll. Having Maryland in the mix is not a surprise. Like Loxley, that staff recruits all those kids. It's kind of the area, DMV area would be a big, fertile recruiting ground for them. So they're very much in it. South Carolina as an East Coast team is very much in it. But Michigan, Miami, LSU would be considered the teams outside the state from further away that are kind of really in the mix here. I'm confident they'll get him on an official visit. Jamar Cain has done way too much recruiting here for him not to get to campus. And now that he's saying he's not doing anything till signing until February and probably not even announcing until January, you've got time. Like, it doesn't matter if he couldn't come for the Tennessee game because now it's like, hey, maybe we do need to get him to campus closer to the end, where you can have that lasting impact that doesn't wear off after a few months. But
because you almost kind of want to be last, right? Don't you
a lot
want to
of
be
the
like
times.
top of mind? The last thing that they saw was how you rolled out the red carpet at OSU. It's hard to forget about that.
I think that a good example of that would be they allow official visitors to come in the summer now, right, or in the spring. So in May and June, you can have official visitors. LSU had a lot of them, but it was working under, like, the guys they said yes to of let's do official visits in the summer were guys that were like, hey, I want to shut things down before my senior year. So then you are last. Like, you're one of the last teams he sees before it goes dead, and then he announces. If it was, hey, I'm not committing anywhere till February, a Nicholas Harper, other guys like that, it's don't push for an official visit right now because
it's almost too early.
It's way too early, right? Like, that wears off. Then he's at all these other schools on official visits during the season or closer to signing day, and now you feel kind of out of sight, out of mind. So I think it just depends on the guy, but with these kids who are still uncommitted right now, or the kids who are committed who have not done official visits yet, it makes sense to wait till closer to signing day to be kind of one of the last teams to get them onto campus.
Absolutely. We got a couple of Ash Shades that came in through the chat. How does LSU stand with Kylan Fox?
Oh, man. I don't.
Are you going to know who all these people are? Are you good?
Yeah, I know who all these people are.
He's back.
I've done enough. I've talked about this already on the show. They need tight ends. He's a tight end, but he's for next year's class. So we're looking ahead. But he's a Grayson High kid. So we've already talked about them getting 3 commitments out of Grayson, 1 for this year, 2 for next year. Kylan Fox would be a kid for next year. I think early on, people have looked at the in-state schools, whether it be Georgia Tech and Georgia, getting him to campus and kind of being around him as schools to monitor. But LSU's in there. He's a top 10 tight end. I think he was, just at the Tech Clemson game. So obviously he's kind of getting out there and looking at schools. But right now I wouldn't have them in like the lead group because he just hasn't talked about him a ton. I think it's been Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, A&M, some small like Louisville, NC State have been in there. But he hasn't talked up LSU as being one of his top teams as much as, for instance, some of his teammates have that are committed to LSU now. So it's a long way away. He's a 2024 guy. But early on, I would not say that they're kind of one of the big teams to beat. Not as of, right this
now.
second.
Okay. Absolutely. Then we get to another one, Ash Shea. This is from Will Burton. I saw Juwan Johnson, LCA, at the game this weekend. Where do you stand? Obviously, he tried to recruit a little bit for LSU. Told him LSU needed him bad. But where are you with Juwan Johnson?
We got people out there just putting in the work, right?
Absolutely. You want boots on the ground.
I saw Juwan. Okay, so Juwan Johnson plays quarterback. I don't know if I guess he is. I need to look that up. Last year he played quarterback at LCA. I'm guessing he's probably their quarterback again. They won a lot of games last year. But he's playing as like an athlete, right? Like one of those guys you put at quarterback because he's the best athlete on the team. But he's being recruited as a DB, as a corner more specifically. So he's probably pushing 6 foot, 175 as a junior in high school. So good size. I saw him at LSU camp this summer and he got offered. He was elite. Like, you would have said he was just as good as the guys who were about to be seniors that were out there working out. Some of them committed to LSU. So I really liked what I saw from him out of kind of his workouts during camp. LSU, like I said, has already made the offer. If you're talking about like the recruiting prediction machine on On3, LSU, if you look it up, is already at 95% because they've made the early offer. They're the ones who've gotten him to campus. He was at the game, as that person mentioned, as Will mentioned, this past weekend. He's got LSU fans already recruiting him. I mean, what else do you need, huh?
That's about it. That's about it.
But they've got. He
goes up against Ricky Collins this week.
There you go. We'll be out at that game. The Bengal Tiger staff will be out at that game if anybody needs to catch it. checking out how Ricky does and obviously how LCA looks. What was I going to say? So with Juwan, I don't know if he's looking to shut things down anytime soon. His recruitment will only continue to pick up with offers, but they've done well at LCA. Like, they got Sage Ryan when it became an LSU-Bama battle. They got Fitzgerald West this past season. Now they're on a guy like Juwan Johnson, and LCA is always going to turn out big-time college prospects. So I think continuing to be on him, I like where they stand early on.
All right, give me one more that we just got in from the chat. This is somebody that I've kind of had an eye on just because I think he's a baseball and football guy, DJ Lagway.
That's a
2024?
Yeah, 2024 quarterback. I think Florida's probably. And he was just at that game over the weekend.
He wants to play both, though.
Play both baseball and,
Yeah.
and football, right. And I think Florida can pitch that.
Really?
Yeah, right?
Okay. I don't know. I think LSU's been, if you've seen the recruiting that Jay Johnson's done, and what they've done with the baseball team, I feel like LSU is very, if you're going to play both at one school, it'd be LSU.
So we'll see how they continue to recruit him. I'll say this. If you're looking ahead to next year, and Joe Sloan is kind of the guy who obviously is spearheading LSU's recruiting efforts. We saw him as the point man on all these quarterbacks they were after in the 23 class, and he played obviously a big role in getting Ricky Collins to flip from Purdue to LSU and stay in state. But if I'm looking at quarterbacks for next year, and LSU's already after kind of all the top guys, Dylan Raiola and CJ Carr are two of the top quarterbacks out there, and they're the two that are already committed. So Raiola, who's out of Arizona, is committed to Ohio State. CJ Carr out of Michigan is committed to Notre Dame. Then you've got this group of like Julian Sayin, Jaden Davis out of North Carolina, DJ Lagway, who we're talking about out of Texas. A number of, we saw some of these kids. Isaac Wilson was at LSU's camp. But I would cut it off at this kind of top group right now. I would say if I'm watching 2024 quarterback recruiting for LSU, I'm keeping an eye first on what happens with Julian Sayin. He's out of Carlsbad in California, but he's been high on LSU. He's talked about having a good relationship with Sloan. A lot of people think it's LSU, Georgia, Michigan, and some people think it's LSU, Georgia. And is Georgia a desire spot right now for quarterback recruits? Yeah, I mean, they're playing great. They are coming off a national championship, of course. But Georgia they're only going to take one guy, and they are also after some other guys. Like you look at Jaden Davis is obviously a kid in North Carolina who both Georgia and Michigan have been on. Jaden Bradford's another kid in South Carolina, but I would look at Davis as a kid that a lot of people are watching. But eventually for Georgia, it's going to be which direction are we really pushing? And if someone beats Sion to the punch to Georgia, I think that opens the door wide open for LSU. And that's just how quarterback dominoes work, right? I mean, one drops, and then all of a sudden we saw that this class. When one quarterback domino drops, all of a sudden you're going even harder on the next guy or whomever it might be. So right now for me, and I know Lagway had already been around LSU a bunch and all that. He's a Texas kid. A&M's been all over him. Florida and that Billy Napier and that staff have been all over him. And so is LSU. But I and look, he's the number 5 quarterback in the country. Sion is number 2. I think they're all over Sion right now, and or Sayin, however it's pronounced. But that's the guy I'm watching, Julian Sayin, for right now, until we see that domino drop.
And obviously after LSU's performance, I would say one of the bigger takeaways was the offensive line. Where do you see LSU? Do you think they make a bigger push for, the 3 remaining spots on the recruiting trail to maybe bolster that thing up a little bit more? I know they already have Zalance Hurd coming in, and it feels like it's going to be a strength at some point, but after that, I don't know if there's if they re-emphasize what they need on the offensive line.
I mean, yes, I think they'll take 1 or 2 more offensive linemen. I think you look at Hurd and Tyree Adams, the 2 in-state tackles. Not often does LSU, or Louisiana, I should say, offer up 2 top 10 nationally offensive tackles. It just doesn't happen they typically don't even have 1. We're on a special run here with Will Campbell.
You never have offensive linemen or quarterbacks.
Yeah, with right, and both of those here in spades. I love Tyree Adams, and I love Hurd, so you're good there. I like the upside of Paul Mabanga as an interior guy. I think they do add another guy or two. So whether that be a high school or in the portal. So you've got more help coming. And we've seen, I love Will Campbell. He's your left tackle, and that's not changing. I love Emory Jones, who they just signed. I think he's going to eventually start at guard.
Are you hold on, one question. Are you surprised to not see Emory Jones get any run?
No,
Sunday?
I mean, I think he was on special teams and blocking there, but I think that because they have some older guys at guard, including 2 transfers. I mean, Tremont Shorts and Miles Frazier have both started 30-something college games before and come to LSU and are now really veterans, older guys that are ready and can buy you time to get Emory Jones ready, and whether that's he ends up playing later this year or kind of getting some run in different spots, you can bring him along more slowly without having to feel like you're rushing him out there. And I think that's a good one of the benefits of being able to take transfers is it allows you to develop other guys at a rate that might be more appropriate. I would say, though, not shocked that he didn't play, but I will be surprised if he's not out there at some point this year because I think he's really talented. They signed Fitzgerald West. They needed centers. He converted from the D-line to play center. I love Bo Bordelon. I think people just forget about him, and he's got probably some of the better measurables of anybody on the O-line. He's got the bloodlines. His kid's got 11-inch hands. He's a beast.
Yeah, built. Yeah, that's what I think you want kind of everybody. Will
He's
Campbell
long.
took all of it felt like took all of the shine because Bo Bordelon, everything that you just listed out, Bo Bordelon was coming to LSU no matter what.
Well, yeah, I mean,
people never really looked at it as if he could contribute.
well, and he
year
didn't
one.
have the lofty ranking. He
Right.
was coming out of Newman. I like Bo Bordelon. So I guess my point being is I think last class and this class, high school-wise, set themselves up well for the future. And they're not done in this class. So I like the direction it's going. And maybe they take another transfer or two as kind of, ways to bolster up the line in the short term. But for the future, I think there's no reason not to trust what Brian Kelly can do developing or overseeing the development and recruitment of offensive line, because that was probably arguably the number one strength he had at Notre Dame. That look across the NFL, they have offensive line
everywhere.
They got centers, guards, tackles, what you need.
Well,
they were churning them out.
And not only is that Brian Kelly, it's I guess that's would probably be his strongest base in recruiting is the offensive line. You have Brad Davis, who is an offensive line coach, and Mike Denbrock apparently was a former offensive line coach too. So there's 3 people that emphasize that position. I'd imagine it kind of gets squared away here as the farther we get into the year.
Yeah. No, they'll be fine there. I like where they're going. They'll take a couple more of this class, but this is a nice back-to-back stretch for them recruiting offensive linemen.
Most impressive freshman you saw for LSU Sunday?
I guess Will Campbell?
That's the easy answer.
Are we talking about true freshmen?
Yeah,
There
true
weren't a
freshman.
lot
Yeah,
of them, I
but
guess, that
from
played.
I guess you would call this like Brian Kelly's first kind of quote-unquote class. I know it's not his first real class, but somebody bought in that had to play. I guess Will Campbell was the easy answer.
Well, let's throw this in. I don't think, and this is how colleges view it, talking to a lot of college coaches all over, they almost view if you're a redshirt, if you're a transfer but you're a redshirt freshman transfer, you're basically you didn't play, you took a redshirt last year and then you just came to LSU.
Right.
You're almost like a freshman because you've got 4 years of eligibility left. So I liked Will Campbell. I liked Mason Taylor. I thought Mason Taylor played really well for a kid who was a true freshman. Obviously, special teams.
It was asked to do a lot.
Special teams snafus, but
Yeah.
should you even had him out there in spots like that? But tight end is such a worry spot for them depth-wise in terms of just offensively. And I thought that he rose to the occasion quickly. And we know he's got bloodlines, Jason Taylor being his father, a Hall of Fame, as good as it gets, all-pro type of player. Mom as well was a big-time athlete. I think he's got a bright future. So does Brian Kelly, and he's seen a lot of good tight ends. And he said Mason Taylor is the real deal. I kind of wondered. I was like, is he kind of just thinking that?
Or he's
Because they
trying
don't
to
have a lot of,
speak it into existence.
yeah, they don't have a lot of options over there, so he kind of just looks great. But I thought he looked more. He looked better than I thought he would in his very first college game.
He took over the tight end room.
No doubt.
Pretty much.
There's no doubt who the best tight end on the team
Cole
is.
Taylor was the starter?
Cole Taylor,
Cole
Jack
Taylor
Mashburn, Nick Stores. Is that the 3 tight ends that they have?
That's kind of the other 3 that they have. But it's very clear, as you said, Stewie, that Mason Taylor was one they were throwing it to and
Right.
getting involved. He had as many targets as Keishon Butte did in the game, 6. So He was involved early. But if I throw in that redshirt freshman crop, and I know it wasn't a lot of time, but I really like how Weeks looked when he got there at linebacker. Like, they were struggling with Penn and Jones, and I don't think they'll struggle forever with those two guys. But whether it was missed tackles or maybe it was just kind of being in the right spot or filling the right gap, whatever it might be, you kind of thought like, oh man, they're kind of out of position at times or whatever it was. Whenever Matt House went to Weeks, like, he made some plays, and I think now you can think, okay, we can start to play him more as time goes on, and I still think Harold Perkins will play this year.
That's what I was about to say. Are they like operating the same? You would put Harold Perkins in the middle?
Yeah, I would, but I thought also he would play before Weeks and Fields did, and he didn't at linebacker. He played on special teams, laid a big hit.
Made himself known on special
teams. Made
teams.
himself known.
For sure.
Obviously had the personal foul, but look, you had that personal foul there.
Guy. He got caught.
Yeah, for the second time. You had the personal foul. It's stupid. You're at the end of a game, and Brian Kelly, I saw Harold Perkins coming off the field, like I'm in the press box, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on him. I was like, are they going to light into him right here?
Right.
Like, they about to light him up. And he's like, Brian Kelly's like walking down the sideline to like where the special teams guys are coming off, and like Harold makes a nice like curve around the guy, running some decoy to get around, and Kelly like cuts through the guys. But I thought it was going to be a full chew-out sesh, and kind of just arm around him, and they probably talked for like 2 minutes. And Kelly's like pointing up at the big screen, and they're watching the replay as everybody's like, ooh, like, what was that? And I think Kelly kind of explained to him, like, look, we're trying to win the game here. We're at 2 minutes. You can't do
this in that moment.
You can't. This is not that time for that. Like that. This can't happen again. It's a teachable moment, though. It's his first game. He knows he's only out there right now in special teams, and he's like, I got to make a play, or they're chirping on me, and I got to talk back. And you eventually get that high school mentality out. Yeah, right. You get that high school mentality out of your head, and I think that's what Brian Kelly was saying. But as kind of Perkins gets his feet wet and gets a feel for being part of, an SEC game or a big-time college game, that I think they'll trust to put him out there in some spots at linebacker and then see where it goes.
And one more from Will Burton on the same front on Harold Perkins' front. Any chance you see him getting to run at running back?
No.
You don't think strictly defense?
Strictly defense.
All right.
No reason to mess that flow up. And there'll be Brian Kelly, I asked him this. I said, how do you get the run game going? Because it wasn't good this weekend, right? And he said, look, it's when you're playing catch up and it's game one, and then there's times, obviously, and he didn't circle guys out. He's like, whether it's the O-line didn't block right, the tight ends didn't block right, the running back may have not made the right read, we checked out of the play, but it would have been a big run play. Like, whatever it was, he was like, it's too early for me to tell you, like, here's what we're not good at running back. He was like, it's way too early to know anything about that. I think the better answer for me to feel better about, which I think is the reality, is when John Emery gets back, they'll be better at running back. So one more week, John Emery sits, then he comes back, and then I think we know what they have at running back.
Absolutely. All right. Stuart, if you got anything or anybody you want to hit on, fire away, then we'll get out of here.
Looking at some 2024s over here, Shea.
Oh.
Where does LSU stand with Collab Cobbins from Destrehan?
Right. He was one who, I think he was at the game this past weekend. He's already got an offer from LSU. Let's see. I'm going to give you his quote here. Like I said, Billy Embody had caught up with him. Sorry, guys. I'm scrolling. There he is. They played well, especially for the first game of the season. They have a lot to work on, but really wanted to see what Nathan Smith was going to do, so obviously the injury was tough there. But I watched a lot of B.J. Ojolari, Ali Gay, the jack positions, because I want to play that jack spot, which would be B.J. Ojolari's spot. I really like the defense they're running. And when he was talking about Matt House, he said, I like how they pass, drop, and blitz. So you've got guys like that, even for next year, really paying attention to, okay, you've got a new DC. How is he operating things? How is he using this jack position, which Cobbins is a kid who plays at Destrehan. As a junior, he's 6'3", 200. So he's going to be that Ojolari type of edge rusher. He's already a 4-star. He's already a top 15 edge rusher. And LSU's the team to beat right now, in my opinion. And he's got offers from a lot of big schools, State, Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas, whomever it might be. But, getting him in for that that game this past weekend in New Orleans in his kind of hometown area was big, and won't be surprised if he's at the game this weekend. And 2024 this is how you start to build those relationships. Get these guys to the games, get them early offers, and allow them to start to view your program and your team as how do I fit, because now I do have an offer in hand. Now they are inviting me to games, and I think because of that, they're kind of the early edge there.
Any more, Stu?
Trey Green. I'm just looking at the top five. The top five in Louisiana per On3.
Right.
Or crystal ball to LSU. So I'm just
right. Trey Green is a kid he's out of the Felicianas for next year. And right now he's ranked as the number 1 tight end in the country. I don't think he'll stay there. I think he kind of had that ranking because he was one of the only guys playing when you're a sophomore and you're looking at everybody out there and you're like, I need to show me all the best tight ends out there. And it's like, well, there's not like every school out there starting a really good sophomore tight end,
right?
That's got college.
It's the only position I play.
As the rankings flesh out, we'll see kind of where he ends up. But I think he's already a 4-star. He'll stay there. The big thing with him, Stewie, is he's 6'5.5", 225, and he's one of the better basketball players out there. So is his future in basketball? Is his future in football? Which football-wise, he's just started playing. I think that'll be kind of one thing you monitor going forward. But we've got an interview with him up on the Bengal Tiger, Peter Rauterkus, who does one of the editors at the Reveille, but does some stuff for us with recruiting this fall. Like I said, he went out to East Feliciana and watched his game. And Green said, look, September 1, which is when colleges could first call juniors in high school, he said at midnight his phone was blowing up. LSU, Bama, State, all these different schools kind of really turning up to recruit him. And he said, LSU's obviously going to be in the mix for him because it's the hometown school. He's able to be around the most. But he's also already said Coach McMahon, Taz, Casey Long, David Moore, everybody on the basketball staff is all over him. So whether he does play football or basketball, playing both is incredibly tough. And really nobody.
I think even what Jordan Tolles is
nobody actually does that. And it's nobody. There aren't many guys. Like Jordan Tolles is one of the top players to come out of Baltimore, which is like a super talented basketball area. And he still wouldn't have been a guy that was playing at LSU basketball. So to do both is next level type stuff. But this is a kid basketball wise where I think he's eventually going to have to make a choice. Do I want to play college basketball or do I want to play college football?
Speaking of, when we had a guy similar to that, where Quincy Wiggins wanted to be a basketball guy first, ends up getting more opportunity playing football, was injured on the sidelines Sunday.
Yeah,
he was any update on that?
No, I don't know. I don't know if he already had surgery or what, but he's been in that walking boot and on that roll around knee scooter for a while now.
The Will Campbell special.
Yeah, a while now. We haven't spotted him not in that, so I don't know if that means he's out indefinitely or just still preventative, but it doesn't look like he's playing anytime soon.
That's what I was going to ask next with the Mason Smith injury. If Quincy Wiggins would be the one to get maybe some run going.
I think it's Mekhi Wingo. Right. I think Mekhi Wingo, they loved him. True freshman All SEC guy a year ago at Missouri. They loved him and brought him in and kind of raved about him at different points in camp where they were like, look, at the point of attack, this kid can play. But it was plays the same position as Mason Smith, so you're kind of SOL there. You'd be doing some backup reps.
Yeah, rotational, but now you're
then the worst news of the season hits, which I firmly believe Mason Smith is the best player on the team. That's who you just lost. So you don't replace that. But you have some hope that a guy like Mekhi Wingo can help step up with Guillory and Jaquel and Roy and kind of be a three-man tandem there for you in the middle.
Such a brutal injury.
It's brutal. It sucks.
To lose the way that you just did.
Great kid. I mean, I saw when people were putting it out, I don't even know what Dan Mullen's up to now. I guess he's doing some broadcast stuff.
Oh,
but he had
so
tweeted in response to he's got time now. So he's on Twitter. But he was like,
now he's recruiting.
He had tweeted to he's trying to get Mason Smith committed to ESPN Studios. He had tweeted to whomever had put it out about it's Kelly confirms he's done for the year, and he was like, terrible news, one of the best kids that I could have met on the recruiting trail. And anybody who's ever met Mason shares that sentiment. We're talking about a great kid. It just, you hate, not that you'd like to
Well, yeah.
Not that there's any a-holes on the team that you're like, I don't really mind if they blow out an ACL, but but what I mean is
it hurts in a different way. He doesn't deserve it.
He does everything right, and he's total team guy, 5-star number 1 player, stuck with LSU through, a rough patch in 2020 into 2021. Never was a guy last year who blinked, batted an eye at the portal or anything like that. And then, Coach Kelly said, look, this is a 3-down player for us this year that I don't think enough people are talking about. In fact, I think at the end of the year, everyone in the country is going to be talking about Mason Smith. First defensive series out for the year. Like, it's just brutal.
No point in him redshirting, right? Or
no,
redshirt. He's going to play next year and then be out.
No, he's a 3-year guy. So if he's healthy next year, he's hearing his name called on day 1 of the NFL draft. So I think you just hope he can get back healthy now, which he will, and then be ready and dialed in for next year.
All right. Anybody else you want to hit on before we get out of here?
Yeah, we're good. We got every week to do this, so we're chilling. We're good.
We're good. Wait, we had one more thing. Player of the week.
Oh, it was Kyle Parker. Do we have the stats pulled up? Let me find him real quick. Here we go. Oh no. Well, I know it's 23 catches, 300.
Jeez, wait, this is one game?
Yes. So, and let me give you the stats now. Now on this dead air, but you know what?
That's all right.
We're just talking
bump music so we can
23 catches, 341 yards, 3 TDs in a game that was a top 5 matchup of 6A schools in Texas. Like, we ain't talking about they went on some scrub school. LSU commit. One of the forgotten men. He's a 4-star, but we all talk about Jaylen Brown and Shelton Sampson and Kai Preon here in the state. Your boy Kyle Parker, and 23 catches, was the most, I think it was like 3rd most in Texas high school history, the most in the DFW area history. This was per one of the beat writers over there. So, absolutely, 23, 341, and 3.
How many times did they throw it?
Go off, son. More than 23, or 23 at least.
At least 23. 23, 341, 3 tons, yeah. That's
one game.
That's having a day for one game.
I know some dudes who don't do that in a year.
I was hoping that's what's going to happen with Kayshawn on Sunday. So we get 6 targets.
Maybe this weekend.
Do you see any other tight ends playing at all? Because it feels like they want to go 2 tight end set.
Yeah, then Cole Taylor's going to have to rise to the occasion. It's clear Mason Taylor's going to be out there.
Mason Taylor's going to play, but it feels like
But if I want blocking guys too, and I don't know Store's availability, Jack Mashburn was good for them last year as a blocker. Like, he'll lay it all out there.
And clearly you need help on the offensive line.
I'd play Mashburn.
I think so too. That's what I thought we were going to see, at least in the second half, was going to see more to like 2 tight end sets, have Mashburn, try to help this offensive line.
They just want a lot more 6-man protection with the running back help.
Which they did.
And the running back struggled to block.
So. Well, they were. I think they were ranked the highest, the best. They had the best. Like, what is it? PFF.
I don't know how PFF gets to the bottom of any of this, dude. Yeah. So.
But apparently,
sometimes I read PFF scores and I'm like,
Chris Collinsworth. Chris Collinsworth is running a racket.
I don't know, man. I watched the game, man. Yeah. I saw what happened. All right. We'll do this again next week.
Maybe I'll actually look at something.
Me too.
Yeah, we'll be more prepared. We'll put together a group text, so it's going to be great. Yeah, maybe a little imaging.
Get money.
We got a little intro.
We'll do some graphics.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe get you a cutout.
Gotta get Shea a cutout.
What if this was me just sitting here next to me?
Yeah, that's.
I'll sign it if you'll do that for me.
Of course. Well, it's gonna. You know what picture it's gonna be?
No, don't put it up.
Where is it?
I'm going right now. If it goes up,
it's out.
Stewie's working.
Yeah.
I'm taking the headphones off.
What year was this?
This is my very first Twitter photo. I've just never changed it.
You never can.
Yeah, you got to keep it.
It's probably like 10 years old.
Mardi Gras?
No, I think I just wore that.
Just wearing V? Okay, that's what happened. We'll be back. Wednesday?
Yeah, next Wednesday.
Wednesday at 9:30 every Wednesday.
9:30-ish.
9:30-ish, and it's not going to go an hour. It's not going to go 2 hours. Could be 15 minutes. Could be an hour. We'll see. Thanks for tuning in. We'll do it every week.
Thank you, Lance.